This is part 2 of this SEINFELD prophecy video regarding this prediction for an explosion on April 22nd. It is necessary that you watch part 1 before watching part 2. I will leave a link in the description box below this video to part 1. This will sound very strange, but a cryptic prophecy given by a witch doctor to Jerry Seinfeld in an iconic episode of Seinfeld is part of a prophecy that is predicting that an explosion will occur on August 21st, 2022. It will be a major event. The explosion will likely be a dirty bomb. However, it could be something else, such as a nuclear bomb. It will likely occur in Manhattan. It is also likely that the official narrative in the mainstream media that will emerge regarding this event will somehow be a lie. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction was made ahead of time, as does this timestamped email and forensic notes PDF. If you are skeptical, please email me and I will forward these to you. This video series will explain how the famous basketball prophecy in Seinfeld, in conjunction with the prophetic career of the GOAT of football, Tom Brady, and the prophetic events that occurred in the Rams-Patriots Super Bowl in 2002, right after 9/11, and the Rams-Patriots Super Bowl in 2019, as well as this Rams Super Bowl in 2022, and the final game of Tom Brady's career, which was against the Rams in this year's playoffs, tie together in a big picture of prophetic signs that is a prophecy that is predicting that a dirty bomb will explode in Manhattan on August 21st, 2022. The information in this video series is truly astounding. Obviously, when this prediction comes to pass, you will know that you need to watch every minute of every video in this series and every minute of every video on this channel. The very purpose for this prediction for this explosion on March 13th, 2022 is to prove that everything else that is being said in this video is true. I'll just repeat that so as to be perfectly clear. The reason God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that everything else that is being said in this video is true. The purpose of this prediction is to prove that God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections is being explained on this channel, and that all of the main conclusions stated on this channel that are derived from God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections that many people will disagree with are in fact truth, including, just for example, that the doctrine of imminence derived from the misunderstood passage, "No one knows the day," is absolutely false. The day is now known with certainty, and corresponding action should be taken. Jesus commanded his disciples to watch for the signs of his return. Yet if the average Christian today were asked if they can name one prophetic sign, they will not even understand the question. They are in fact sleeping, just as Jesus warned they would be. That said, the full intended meaning of God's prophetic end times signs cannot be properly understood without their connections to other signs and their context within the bigger picture of signs. The full intended meaning of God's prophetic end times signs and his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections is what is being explained on this channel. God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections is an interconnected web, and all of the main conclusions that are being explained on this channel are inextricably tied to all of the other conclusions that are derived from God's big picture of signs. In other words, the knowledge and confirmation for all of the conclusions are inseparable and would not be possible without the knowledge and confirmation of the other conclusions. In other words, to be very clear, the prediction being made in this video absolutely proves that the God of the Bible is the true God. Jesus is the Son of God. The Bible is the inspired Word of God. His second coming will absolutely be on the Day of Atonement in 2024. The resurrection rapture event will absolutely be on the Feast of Trumpets in 2022. The two antichrists identified in these videos on this channel are absolutely the two antichrists. The mark of the Antichrist identified in the videos on this channel is the mark of the Antichrist. It isn't a supposed precursor to the mark of the Antichrist. It, in its current form, is right now the mark of the Antichrist. And the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day is identified at the end of this video. Jesus said he hates this Nicolaitan doctrine of our day, and that he is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach this doctrine and have the works that are a result of this doctrine. And the vast majority of Christianity today, 90 to 95%, believes this false Nicolaitan doctrine of our day. We are what we believe, and the vast majority of people that call themselves Christians have the works that are a result of this false Nicolaitan doctrine, which is why the vast majority of Christians will not make the rapture. The primary purpose of the end times is judgment on the church. The persecution of the church through the Antichrist will compel Christians to finally get rid of this false Nicolaitan doctrine and demonstrate saving faith through their actions. One of the main reasons why this Nicolaitan doctrine of our day is the problem is because the vast majority doesn't believe they need to learn about doctrine. Most people mistakenly believe that the Nicolaitan doctrine couldn't possibly be their doctrine or the doctrine of their church. It must be those, quote, other churches, unquote. This prediction will prove that this is most certainly wrong, and that you need to become knowledgeable about doctrine and what the Bible really says instead of what mainstream Christian culture has taught. Speaking through the prophet Hosea, God said, "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge." If you are Christian, the primary purpose of this prediction is this warning I am giving you right now. Listen to the message at the end of this video regarding the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day, and then follow my instructions regarding the links to other resources. And this Nicolaitan doctrine of our day is the root reason why the vast majority of Christianity today has not been able to recognize what the mark of the Antichrist is. In other words, the reason why the vast majority of Christians are not able to recognize that this thing is the mark of the Antichrist is because this thing is judgment on the church for this Nicolaitan doctrine. Proving these things is the purpose of this prediction, and any other conclusions regarding these things is to miss the point of this prediction and misses the point of this channel. In other words, after the prediction being made in this video comes to pass, you should realize that you should watch every single minute of every video on this channel, including the end of this video, which identifies what the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day is, that God has indisputably identified through his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. As well, the videos on this channel are not updates on current events. Instead, all of these videos serve as a library of God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. Go back into the archive and watch all of the videos. And if you are new to Christianity, I understand that there may be some stumbling blocks, things that other Christians have taught that unfortunately are not what the Bible teaches. For example, although those that reject Christ will pay the price for their sin and then die a second death, they will not be tortured in hell forever. And the unfortunate teaching that Jesus' death somehow satisfied God's anger and sense of justice, or a flood that covered the entire planet. I encourage everyone to go through all of the information on my website, TrumpPrediction.com or PredictionsProveIt.com, and also watch the video Part 1 of the Big Picture of Signs. In a CBS Sports News article, the kicker was said to be a goat, but not the greatest of all time type of goat, like Tom Brady, but a scapegoat. The term scapegoat comes from the Bible. The ancient Jews would conduct a ritual sacrifice involving a goat on the Temple Mount on the Day of Atonement in the Hebrew calendar. Goat is Antichrist symbolism, and the Day of Atonement symbolizes judgment and the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ and the defeat of the Antichrist goat on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The Day of Atonement is the 10th day of the 7th month. This is why Tom Brady, the GOAT of football, won his 7th Super Bowl win in 10 Super Bowl appearances. The GOAT won his 7th Super Bowl win in 10 Super Bowl appearances on the same day that SpaceX's Dragon crew tied the record for most number of days in space at 84 days. The number 84 symbolizes the end times period of the Antichrist's rule. As in the Bible, the end times is associated with a symbolic period of 7 years, which began in 2017. 7 years is 84 months. As well, the Antichrist, Barack Obama, was born on August 4th, which is 8-4, for which 84 hints at. The date 8-4 is the 216th day in the calendar year. 216 is 6 times 6 times 6. And in Bible prophecy, 666 symbolizes the Antichrist. 84 days after SpaceX's Dragon crew tied the record of number of days in space at 84 days, the Dragon crew in their Dragon capsule descended from outer space, the second heaven, and splashed down on Earth. In Revelation chapter 12, it is said that the dragon and his angels at the beginning of the end times period were thrown down from heaven to earth. In prophecy, the dragon's descent to earth is said to mark the beginning of the final 1,260 days period of the end times. SpaceX's Dragon crew splashed down on May 2nd, 2021. And this date just happens to be exactly 1,260 days before the Day of Atonement in 2024. In other words, this is 100% rock-solid confirmation that Judgment Day and the vanquish of the goat Antichrist from the Temple Mount will be on October 12th, 2024. As well, the purpose for God giving me a voice through this prediction that is being made in this video is to prove this. The doctrine of imminence, which uses a misinterpretation of the passage, "No one knows the day or hour," is absolutely false. Two main aspects of this story of this record-setting Dragon crew splashdown was the first nighttime splashdown since Apollo 8, which was the first time man circled the moon, and the moon symbolizes Christ as the sun symbolizes God the Father, and the sun's light is too bright for us to gaze at, but we can gaze at the sun's light reflected off of the moon. And the crew of Apollo 8 read the book of Genesis from the moon to 1/4 of the world's population on Christmas. And the other aspect of this story regarded how the splashdown was delayed a couple of days due to bad weather, and how the descent was expedited and only took 6.5 hours. The news media reported how it only took 6.5 hours for the Dragon crew to descend from the International Space Station and splash down on Earth. 6.5 hours is 390 minutes. The 390th word in Strong's Greek New Testament Concordance is the word for return. The Apostle James used this word when he quoted the passage Amos 9:11 from the Old Testament, when God said he would return to rebuild his temple on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The Dragon crew returned to Earth in 390 minutes. And this was exactly 1,260 days before the return of Lord Jesus Christ, when he will return to rebuild his temple on the Temple Mount. The day the Dragon crew splashed down was IR 20 in the Hebrew calendar. This was the day the Jews departed from Mount Sinai and began their journey into the wilderness. In prophecy in the book of Revelation, after the dragon descends to earth, It is said that God's people will flee the dragon and hide in the wilderness. The name of this team from Rice University that kicked this quadruple doink is Owls. The first instance of the word owl in the Bible occurs in the book of Leviticus, chapter 11, verse 17. Just a couple of weeks after this quadruple doink, that was exactly 44 weeks after the double doink in Chicago, was the day that the 44th president, who is from Chicago, released his long-anticipated book, Promised Land, on the date 11/17, which hinted at Leviticus 11:17. Obama is known for being a night owl. The media reported about Obama's late-night work habits. As well, it was reported how Obama's night owl habits contrasted with his predecessor, who was known for being an early bird. His book release on 11/17 was also the same time that an owl was in the news. An owl was discovered in the Rockefeller Christmas tree, a tree that went viral on the internet due to criticism of it looking scraggly and sparse, and how the tree's appearance was symbolically appropriate for the year 2020, the year of COVID. From the Bible, the number 13 symbolizes the Antichrist. Nimrod was a type or foreshadow for the Antichrist, and he was the 13th generation from Ham. Haman, another type for the Antichrist, persecuted the Jews on the 13th days of the months, and the two Antichrists are described in the book of Revelation in chapter 13. Exactly 13 weeks before this 7th Super Bowl win out of 10 Super Bowl appearances for Tom Brady, this same Kansas City Chiefs kicker kicked another double doink. This time it was a missed extra point, and had this missed extra point been made, the total score of the game would have added up to 44. Which hints at the 44th president Antichrist. And this game was played against the team named Panthers. And Barack Obama said his favorite movie of 2016 was Black Panther. And as explained in the must-watch World Series Blood Moon Prophecy video, God used this movie and the death of the main actor Chadwick Boseman in other prophetic signs that also point to Barack Obama. And in Barack Obama's autobiography, Dreams of My Father, Barack Obama's prophetic dream, which unknowingly to him identifies him as the Antichrist, involves him being chased by a big wild cat. And in Bible prophecy in the book of Daniel, one of the four beasts is a big wild cat that has 4 heads and 4 wings, which is hinting that one of the two Antichrists is the 44th president. But very importantly, the day of this double doink by this Kansas City Chiefs kicker, on November 8, 2020, was also the day of the death of Alex Trebek, the host of the show Jeopardy! Alex Trebek died at the age of 80 years old after having hosted 8,000 episodes of the show Jeopardy! On the 8th of November in 2020, on the day of this double doink. And on this same day, the Pittsburgh Steelers went 8-0. The only team in the NFL at that time to have an undefeated record. The Steelers went 8-0, which hinted at the number 80, and Alex Trebek on the same day died at 80 years old. And Alex Trebek has an extremely prophetic connection to the state of Pennsylvania, where the Pittsburgh Steelers play. This prophetic connection is through Trebek having hosted the Pennsylvania gubernatorial debate in 2018. Which is explained in the Jeopardy! Trebek prophecy video. On 9/11 in 2001, Flight 93 crashed 80 miles outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And in the crash of Flight 93 on 9/11, there were 44 deaths, which hinted at the 44th president Antichrist. And exactly 80 months before the Pittsburgh Steelers went 8-0 and Alex Trebek died at 80 years old, was the day of the prophetic plane crash of Malaysian airline flight 370 in the Indian Ocean. But this very important prophecy and many other things are explained in the absolute must-watch Jeopardy! Alex Trebek prophecy video, one of the most important videos on this channel. There is much more to say, but Alex Trebek hosted the show Jeopardy, which is famous for its gimmick, Double Jeopardy. And this tie into Double Jeopardy is through Alex Trebek, and he died on the same day as the Double Doink, in which, had this extra point been made, the total score would have added up to 44. In other words, the missed extra point highlighted the number 44. And this is where this video is ultimately leading to. This video is making the case for the Double Doink, Double Jeopardy second presidency of Barack Obama, the Antichrist. This is what these Double Doink kicks are symbolizing. This is what God is communicating through these prophetic signs and these double doinks. The double presidency, the comeback, the return of Barack Obama. And one main reason for this particular kicker, this kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, whose name is Harrison Butker, is because Harrison Butker is hinting at Kamala Harris. And her death will be the doorway through which Barack Obama will pass and become president again. After she will die in a plane crash, Barack Obama will be appointed her replacement, and then Joe Biden will resign, and Barack Obama will once again become the president, a double presidency. This will be how Barack Obama will overcome the 22nd Amendment's restriction on someone being elected to the office of president more than twice. He will be appointed instead. In the fulfillment of the Seinfeld prophecy, the San Antonio Spurs played in this overtime game, and it was one of 4 overtime games in a row that they played in, the first time this had happened in the NBA in literally 50 years. Tom Brady won his 7th Super Bowl in 10 appearances in the 50th Super Bowl of the modern era. Literally 50 years prior was when the AFL and NFL first began playing each other in the regular season. Tom Brady played the Kansas City Chiefs, and the only points the Chiefs scored were field goals kicked by this same Kansas City Chiefs kicker, and this kicker wears jersey number 7. A field goal is 3 points. 3 field goals by player number 7 symbolizes 3 sets of 7. In each of the 2 previous Super Bowls, there was also 3 sets of 7. And also in these 2 previous Super Bowls, just like the Super Bowl this year, there were literal 50 years connections. In the book of Joshua, Joshua led the Hebrews around the security walls of the ancient city of Jericho 7 times over 7 days, while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets before they sounded the trumpet one last long trumpet blast before the security walls collapsed in judgment. This was 3 sets of 7. Joshua, who led the Hebrews around the walls of security of ancient Jericho before they collapsed, died at the age of 110. On 9/11, the Twin Towers that collapsed were 110 stories high. In Super Bowl 54, the Kansas City Chiefs were in the Super Bowl for the first time in literally 50 years, and the main story of the game was how the quarterback and the Chiefs caught fire at the end of the game in their come-from-behind victory and scored 3 touchdowns, which is 7 points each, with just under 7 minutes remaining in the game, which gave us another clear 3 sets of 7. And also another 50 years connection. In Super Bowl 53 in 2019, the winning team only scored 1 touchdown, which is 7 points, and this touchdown came exactly with 7 minutes and 0 seconds remaining in the game. And the only other time a winning Super Bowl team only scored 1 touchdown was literally 50 years before this. This connection was a main story after the game, and this gave us 3 sets of 7, and another 50 years connection. Tom Brady is the most famous quarterback of our time. Arguably, the other most famous quarterback in history is Joe Namath. Joe Namath's nickname is Broadway Joe because of his many appearances in the 1970s and 80s in television, movies, and even Broadway. Although heavy underdogs in the days leading up to the Super Bowl in 1969, Joe Namath famously predicted that his team, the New York Jets, would win the Super Bowl. Both Joe Namath and Tom Brady wear jersey number 12. Tom Brady was never supposed to be a starting quarterback, but Brady got his chance 12 days after 9/11, when the Patriots' star starting quarterback was injured in a game against the New York Jets. A Jets linebacker hit the Patriots' starting quarterback hard in his side. The following week, Brady was the starting quarterback for the Patriots in a game against the Colts. The Patriots scored 44 points. After Brady's stunning performance in his first game as a starter against the Colts, the rest of his career is history. GOAT is Antichrist symbolism. And the first game that the GOAT of football, Tom Brady, greatest of all time, started in was against the Colts. And he scored 44 points, which identified the 44th president as the GOAT Antichrist. The New York Jets and the Baltimore Colts were the two teams that played each other in the Joe Namath 1969 Super Bowl. New York Jets quarterback Joe Namath wore jersey number 12. Tom Brady, player number 12, began his career 12 days after 9/11 in 2001 against the New York Jets, and then he played the Colts. On the prophetic 50th anniversary of the 1969 Super Bowl between the Jets and the Colts, Joe Namath was in attendance at the 2019 Super Bowl. Just like Namath's team in 1969, the Patriots won the Super Bowl with only scoring one touchdown. These were the only two Super Bowls in history in which the winning team only scored one touchdown. And this touchdown score of 7 points was made with exactly 7 minutes remaining on the clock. In other words, God's purpose of all of these connections was to point to the beginning of the career of Tom Brady, player 12, against the New York Jets, and the hard hit on the side of the quarterback by the New York Jets linebacker 12 days after two Jets that were flights from New England, the home of the Patriots, hit hard the side of the two towers in New York. In the book of Joshua, Joshua led the Hebrews around the security walls of the ancient city of Jericho 7 times over 7 days, while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets before they sounded the trumpet one last long trumpet blast before the security walls collapsed in judgment. This was 3 sets of 7. Joshua died at the age of 110. 110 weeks is 110 days times 7. And Joshua led the Hebrews around the walls 7 times over 7 days, while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets. And exactly 110 weeks back from this GOAT Tom Brady Super Bowl in 2021 was the day that this same Chicago Bears kicker kicked another doink in the same season as his double doink and the 4 goalposts in one game. If we count the double doink as 2 doinks, it was a total of 7 doinks in this season. This doink that was 110 weeks before Tom Brady's 7th Super Bowl win occurred with 7 minutes and 17 seconds remaining on the clock. Exactly 110 weeks later, the other double doink kicker, Harrison Butker, kicked a 3 sets of 7, and Tom Brady won his 7th Super Bowl, and he won 7 Super Bowls in 10 Super Bowl appearances, which hints at the GOAT Antichrist on the Temple Mount on the Day of Atonement, the 10th day of the 7th month, which is symbolized by the number 17. As well, in the book of Revelation, a beast is used as a metaphor to describe the Antichrist and the Antichrist system, and this beast has 7 heads and 10 horns, for which the number 17 also symbolizes. This confirms this 110 weeks connection between Harrison Butker's 3 sets of 7 and Tom Brady's 7 Super Bowl wins in 10 Super Bowl appearances, and the day that this kicker that plays for the team from Chicago kicked one of his 7 doinks that season with the clock at 7:17. This doink that was kicked with 7:17 remaining on the clock also hints at the passage from Genesis 7:17. This is the verse in the account of Noah's flood in which the flood judgment from God began. The last verse of the account of Noah's flood is Genesis 9:17. This verse regards God's sign regarding judgment, the rainbow. Barack Obama was president from 2009 until 2017, and he arrived in Washington, D.C. as the senator from Illinois in the 109th Congress. While attending Columbia University, he lived on 109th Street in Manhattan, and he will return to the District of Columbia as the president and Antichrist during the 117th Congress, which began on January 4th, 2021. The Antichrist will come to power during the 117th Congress because from the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment, and the number 13 symbolizes the Antichrist. 9 times 13 equals 117. Which communicates judgment through the Antichrist on the nation. The basketball president was president from 2009 until 2017, and his association with the 109th and 117th Congresses is the reason for the Cleveland 117, San Antonio 109 basketball prophecy from the SEINFELD episode. I will explain the prophetic significance of the city Cleveland in a minute, but the reason for why this game was played in San Antonio is because San Antonio is associated with the Alamo. The Battle of the Alamo is one of America's defining moments in history, and the story of the Battle of the Alamo ended with the fort's walls of security being breached by the enemy. In the Bible, the collapse or breach of walls of security is judgment symbolism. In the Bible, the Babylonians breached the walls of security of Jerusalem on the 9th day of the month of Tammuz in the Hebrew calendar. And then, centuries later, the Romans breached the walls of security of Jerusalem on the 17th day of the month of Tammuz. This 9th and 17th of Tammuz gives us the number 9 and 17, which is why in the prophetic SEINFELD basketball prophecy involving San Antonio, which hints at Alamo, the score is 117 to 109. And on the 9th of Tammuz in 2015, the president that was president from 2009 until 2017 famously lit up the White House in rainbow colors on the day that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of gay marriage. And again, God's sign regarding judgment, the rainbow, is recorded in the last verse of the account of Noah's flood in Genesis 9:17. And this is another reason why God pairs the numbers 9 and 17 together. And this is why Obama is the rainbow president. The president that was president from 2009 until 2017. New York Times television critic Jack Gold called Joan Rivers, quote, quite possibly the most intuitively funny woman alive, unquote. In 2017, Rolling Stone magazine ranked her 6th on its list of the top 50 stand-up comics of all time. And in October 2017, she was inducted into the Television Academy Hall of Fame. The unexpected death of comedian Joan Rivers on September 4th, 2014 was a prophetic sign. At the time of her death, she had a very popular TV show and was still at the height of her fame, which was designed by God for this prophetic sign. She died not long after she famously said that Barack Obama was the first gay president. She said this while chiding the reporter for asking her in the first place as if it was obvious. Her ashes were scattered in Wyoming, the 44th state to join the Union. which confirms that her death is a prophetic sign that is pointing to the 44th president. The date of her death on September 4th is 9/4, and 9 times 4 equals 36. And God uses the number 36 to symbolize 666, as 36 is 6 times 6, and it is also 2 times 18, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6, and the 36th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 36th row is 666. And 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up to 36 equals 666. Her death on September 4th, 2014 was exactly 9 months and also exactly 11 months before 2 prophetic Barack Obama signs. 9 months and 11 months hint at the events on 9/11 in 2001, the judgment warning sign for America, and these 9 months and 11 months connection from the death of Joan Rivers confirm that the death of Joan Rivers is a prophetic sign. Exactly 9 months after her death on September 4th, 2014, was June 4th, 2015, one of the GOATs of basketball, LeBron James, scored 44 points in his first game in an NBA Finals as a Cleveland Cavalier. The prophetic significance of the city Cleveland will also be explained later in this video. His 44 points scored in this prophetic Game 1 was a news story, as it was claimed that the opposing basketball team allowed him to score these 44 points as part of their defensive strategy. In Bible prophecy, 1,260 days is the symbolic period of the Antichrist's rule, and exactly 1,260 days after this game in which the news story regarded his scoring 44 points was another news story involving LeBron James scoring 44 points. On this day in November 2018, he scored 44 points and became the 4th all-time scorer in the NBA. These games in which the GOAT of basketball scored 44 points were prophetic signs identifying the GOAT Antichrist as the 44th president. On August 4th, 2015, which was 11 months after the death of Joan Rivers, on his birthday, the 44th president, as president, visited Chicago, where he is from, at the age of 54. And while he was in Chicago, 4 sisters in Chicago had 4 babies over 4 days. The reason for establishing the death of Joan Rivers as being a prophetic sign is because shortly before she died, she famously identified Barack Obama as America's first gay president, which confirmed the stories of people in Barack Obama's past trying to tell the world how, in fact, Barack Obama had engaged in homosexual activity in his past. Later in this video, it will be explained why God pairs the numbers 9 and 23 together to confirm the signs and connections and to point to the Antichrist, Barack Obama. In the pairings of 9 and 23 that God uses, he often uses 9 months and 23 days connections to connect prophetic signs that are relevant to each other. And this is the big connection here. Exactly 9 months and 23 days after the death of Joan Rivers, Barack Obama famously lit up the White House in rainbow colors. In the Bible, widespread homosexuality and sexual deviancy was a manifestation of a society's last stage of rebellion against God before its destruction in judgment. On this same day that Obama lit up the White House in rainbow colors, at the scene of the 9/11 judgment warning, the One World Tower was also lit up in rainbow colors. Again, the story of Joshua and the walls of security of Jericho make the number 110 symbolize walls of security collapsing in judgment. This is why, for example, it was 110 stories of the Twin Towers that collapsed on 9/11. So the number 110 is associated with walls of security collapsing in judgment. And again, the Babylonians and the Romans breached the walls of security of the ancient city of Jerusalem on the 9th of Tammuz and the 17th of Tammuz. And pairings of 9 and 17 symbolize God's sign regarding judgment, the rainbow. Exactly 110 weeks after the One World Tower was bathed in rainbow colors, and the day Obama lit up the White House in rainbow colors, on the 9th of Tammuz in the Hebrew calendar, was the day a double rainbow appeared over the White House, and Trump, God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet his signs, tweeted about this. This double rainbow and its 110 weeks connection to Obama hinted at the double presidency of Obama, who was president from 2009 until 2017. And again, God's sign regarding judgment, the rainbow, is recorded in Genesis 9:17. What confirms this connection even more is that God pairs the numbers 9 and 110 together extremely frequently to confirm the signs and connections and to point to 9/11. And this is explained in other videos. But in this connection, we have from the 9th of Tammuz a 110 weeks connection. And this connection involves the One World Tower, the scene of the 9/11 judgment warning. This is why from the Super Bowl in 2021, that was the Antichrist Goat Super Bowl, and was also the day that the Dragon crew tied the record at 84 days in space. It was exactly 109 weeks and 117 weeks back to these prophetic doink games involving the kicker for the team from Chicago. Obama is from Chicago. And the double doink in the prophetic playoff game in Chicago communicated the double doink presidency of Barack Obama, the GOAT Antichrist. Again, Chicago kicker player number 1 hit the goalpost 4 times in one game on the date 11/11, which was 4 ones, which hinted at the 44th president. And this was 117 weeks exactly to the Tom Brady GOAT Super Bowl. And this same Chicago kicker kicked the prophetic double doink exactly 109 weeks before the Tom Brady GOAT Super Bowl. And this 109 weeks and 117 weeks that point to Barack Obama, who is from Chicago, is confirmation that Barack Obama is the GOAT Antichrist because Barack Obama arrived in Washington, D.C. during the 109th Congress and will return as the Antichrist president in the 117th Congress. Barack Obama is the basketball president, and this was the reason for the SEINFELD basketball prophecy of Cleveland 117, San Antonio 109. Cleveland, because President Grover Cleveland was the only president to serve non-consecutive terms, just like Barack Obama will serve non-consecutive terms, having skipped the 45th presidency. Tom Brady is the GOAT of football, greatest of all time. The ancient Jews in Israel would conduct a ritual sacrifice on the Temple Mount on the Day of Atonement in the Hebrew calendar, which is the 10th day of the 7th month. The number 17 symbolizes the 10th day of the 7th month. The GOAT of football's 7 wins in 10 Super Bowl appearances hints at the GOAT on the Temple Mount on the Day of Atonement, and his 7 win in 10 appearances symbolizes the number 17. The 3 field goals, one in each of the first 3 quarters of the game, kicked by player number 7, Harrison Butker, which was a prophetic 3 sets of 7, add up to 9 points. This 9 points and 7 wins in 10 appearances gave us a pairing of 9 and 17, which identified Barack Obama as the GOAT Antichrist that will be on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem on the Day of Atonement when Lord Jesus Christ will return. The final score in this Super Bowl was 9-31. God pairs the numbers 9, 17, and 31 in his signs in order to identify the Antichrist, the president from 2009 until 2017. That is described in the book of Isaiah, chapter 31. The end of chapter 31 describes the Antichrist on the Temple Mount and his defeat by the Messiah. Another example of 9, 17, and 31 paired together is the duckboat tragedy on Table Rock Lake in Missouri in July of 2018. 31 people were on board, 17 drowned, 9 of which were from the same family. 9 times 17 equals 153. In Jesus' last miracle, 153 fish were caught from the boat on the lake in Galilee. The Sea of Galilee happens to have the exact same water volume and the exact same surface area as Table Rock Lake in Missouri. The duckboat sank just before sunset and was raised from the bottom of the lake 3.5 days later in the early morning. Jesus was crucified just before sunset, and then he raised himself and was resurrected from the grave in the early morning 3.5 days later. On the same early morning that the duckboat was raised from the bottom of Table Rock Lake, the 220-pound rock fell from the western wall in Jerusalem on the prophetic 9th of Av date, the date that commemorates the falling of the temples. The 220th word in Strong's Greek New Testament Concordance is the word for rooster, which symbolizes Peter, whose name was given to him by Jesus and means rock. In the Bible, rock symbolizes Jesus. The 220-pound rock fell from the wall on the same early morning that the duckboat was raised from the bottom of Table Rock Lake, which has a maximum depth of 220 feet. The duckboat sank on another prophetic day in Israel, the day that the bill was passed in the Knesset declaring that Israel is a Jewish state. And so the duckboat sank on the day of the Jewish state bill and was raised 3.5 days later on the same day that the rock fell from the western wall in Jerusalem in Israel. Jesus predicted that the temple would fall and be destroyed after the Jews would destroy his temple, his body. Jesus said that afterward he would raise this temple in 3 days. Tom Brady is player number 12. His greatest of all time career began 12 days after 9/11. Selected 199th in his draft, Brady was never supposed to be a starting quarterback. Player 12's opportunity came 12 days after 9/11, when the starting quarterback, Drew Bledsoe, was hit hard in his side by a New York Jets linebacker. The hit caused massive internal bleeding, which almost killed the quarterback, whose name Bledsoe hints at bleeding. This famous hit into the side of the quarterback for New England was by a New York Jet. 12 days earlier, 2 jets that departed from New England slammed into the side of the towers in New York. And this is why Tom Brady's entire career is a massive prophetic sign that points to 9/11. After this hit, Tom Brady came into the game and then guided his team to a Super Bowl victory just months after 9/11. Had this famous hit never happened, we would not have had the famous greatest of all time career of Tom Brady. Brady's entire greatest of all time career was one big prophetic sign that pointed to this first game, which pointed to 9/11. In that first game, player 11, Drew Bledsoe, was replaced by player 12, Tom Brady. This symbolizes the 11th hour going into the 12th hour, which is why on 9/11, it was Flight 11 with a crew of 11 people. The second plane had a crew of 9 people that flew into the Twin Towers that looked like a giant 11 in New York State, the 11th state to join the Union. This is because Jesus coined the phrase the 11th hour, which referred to the last hour of daylight before darkness, the 12th hour. And in English, the 11th hour is an idiom that means last chance, time is running out. As in last chance, time is running out for the nation to repent and to turn back to God before judgment destruction. It is because the Twin Towers look like a giant 11 that in this most prophetic football play of all of history, the New York Jets linebacker hit player number 11 for the team from New England. On 9/11, the jets that flew from New England hit the Twin Towers, which looked like a giant 11. In fact, if you look closely, player number 11, Drew Bledsoe, in this play, he comes out of the huddle and retreats back to the 11-yard line. If you look closely, his foot is directly on the 11-yard line marker. It's at that point that he decides to run for the sidelines. It's when his foot is right on the 11-yard marker that he makes the decision to run for the sidelines. Brady's first Super Bowl win with the New England Patriots came just months after 9/11. Just about everyone in the entire nation were rooting for the Patriots to win this Super Bowl for obvious symbolic reasons. The Patriots symbolize America. New England symbolizes the spiritual founding of America with the Pilgrims and the Boston Colony, which is why the New England Patriots were the most important sports team in God's prophetic signs. This Super Bowl in 2002 is known for Brady's last-minute game-winning drive, something we became accustomed to witnessing over the years. With the score tied at 17, and with only 1 minute and 21 seconds remaining, Brady and the Patriots began their game-winning drive from their own 17-yard line. This emphasis on the 1 minute left and repetition of the number 17 hinted at the 17 minutes in between when the two planes struck the two towers on 9/11. In the Bible, it is said that 2 or 3 witnesses are required to confirm a matter. After the first plane struck the North Tower, the world was confused as to whether it was an accident or terrorism. 17 minutes later, the world watched live and in horror as the second plane struck the South Tower, which confirmed that it was an act of evil, making this the ultimate second witness sign and a second witness to this judgment warning from God on 9/11. And each one of these last-minute game-winning drives that we repeatedly witnessed over the span of Brady's career were all prophetic signs that pointed back to this last-minute game-winning drive in Tom Brady's first Super Bowl win in 2002, shortly after 9/11, in order to point to the two planes that struck the two towers 17 minutes apart. 17 years after this game-winning drive that began from the 17-yard line with the score tied at 17-17, Brady and the Patriots again played the Rams in the Super Bowl. This 17 years between these two Rams-Patriots Super Bowls hinted at the two jets that rammed the two towers 17 minutes apart on 9/11. After the 2018 World Series, which was also extremely prophetic, the 2019 Super Bowl was also the second championship game in a row played between Boston and Los Angeles, which hinted at the two planes that rammed the two towers on 9/11 that were flights from Boston to Los Angeles. This was confirmed with the World War II plane that crashed on Highway 101 in Los Angeles right before Game 1 of the World Series in Boston, between Boston and Los Angeles, at the same time that the double rainbow that the media called the World Series Rainbow appeared over Fenway Park right before Game 1, which was followed up with another double rainbow over Fenway Park right before Game 2. At the time that the World War II plane crashed on Highway 101 right before Game 1, and the double rainbow, which was Noah's flood symbolism, The strongest storm, which is Noah's flood symbolism, to ever touch U.S. soil was pummeling the U.S. Pacific Islands that were won during World War II through the use of these World War II planes. Going into this Super Bowl against the Rams, that was 17 years after the 2002 Super Bowl against the Rams, Tom Brady had 17 Super Bowl records. With this Super Bowl in 2019, him and Coach Belichick were in 9 of the 11 Super Bowls the Patriots have been in. The MVP, most valuable player, of the 2019 Super Bowl was Patriots wide receiver player number 11, who received passes from Tom Brady, player number 12, which was another 11th hour going into the 12th hour sign. The Deflategate witch hunt fiasco over allegations that Tom Brady cheated through deflating footballs was all about the infamous 11 out of 12 footballs, which also made it an 11th hour going into the 12th hour prophetic sign. When the Patriots visited Obama at the White House, Obama made a joke about how 11 out of 12 of his jokes fall flat. This connection between Obama and this supposed cheating scandal symbolizes his cheating to get into the White House because he was born in Kenya, and the stolen election that will enable Joe Biden to appoint Obama his successor later this year. The official Obama White House video of this Patriots visit in Washington, D.C. is 12 minutes long. In the 11th minute, the 44th president was gifted jersey number 44. This date was exactly 44 months after the Washington, D.C. earthquake that cracked the Washington Monument and was a major prophetic judgment warning sign that identified the 44th president is the Antichrist. But this is explained in other videos, including the must-watch Suez Canal ship prophecy video. Brady's career began with the prophetic hit by the New York Jets linebacker on the quarterback that caused internal bleeding of Drew Bledsoe. The last playoff game of Brady's career was played against the Rams, and the news story regarded the hit Brady took from the Rams player that caused Brady's lip to bleed. The hit came from Rams player 40, who was the MVP in Super Bowl 50. 40 plus 50 gives us 90, which symbolizes the number 9, which is the most important number in God's end times signs as it symbolizes judgment. After this hit, Tom Brady started yelling at the referee, and this referee gave Tom Brady his first ever unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, which is truly ironic because just a few days prior to this, Tom Brady had been bragging on his podcast how he often gets away with behavior that he should be penalized for. Even more ironic is that after the game, he complained that the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty was unfair. All of this confirms the judgment warning symbolism that is contained in this play with this hit from player 40, who was the MVP in Super Bowl 50, which gives us the number 9, the most important number in God's signs that symbolizes judgment, with this play occurring in Tom Brady's last career playoff game, the symbolic ending of his extremely prophetic career. This prophetic hit that caused Brady's lip to bleed was a fitting bookend ending to God's most important prophetic sports judgment warning signs, which was Tom Brady and the Patriots. This is the end of part 2 of this video. After this prediction has come to pass, you will know that you need to watch all of this video, and for that matter, every minute of every video on this channel. Click on the link to watch part 3, or I will leave a link to part 3 in the description box below this video. Also, please leave a like and a comment. And if you forgot to leave a like or a comment for part 1, please go back to part 1 and do so. Thank you. Most importantly, After this prediction has come to pass, make sure that you share this video link with everyone you know and everywhere in social media, and don't stop sharing the link. And I recommend sharing the link to part 1.